Hey, this is Shashank Jani here, and we are continuing our journey with part two of markup or margin management. We're going to learn about timing of markup in this video. We're going to learn about average markup. An average markup is determined by working with the total cost and total retail. Remember, individual percentages cannot be averaged unless the quantities are exactly the same. The sections that follow illustrate three types of problems in which markup is averaged. One, calculating the markup percent needed on the balance of purchases when the planned markup percent is known. Second, averaging costs when the retail percent and the market percent are known. Third, averaging retail when the cost and the markup percent needed are known. Now, each section begins with an explanation indicating the circumstances under which such a problem might occur in a retail store. So, let's start with the first type of problem in which markup is averaged. That is, calculating markup percent needed on balance of purchase when the planned markup percent is known. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay. So let's go to our next thing and we can discuss. All right. So let's get to our next discussion point, and that is the timing of markups. So this is an important aspect of our learning and what we're going to primarily focus our next couple of hours of discussion on. Now, what do we mean by timing of markups? Well, at various times during a merchandise cycle, you are going to be applying markups. Now, why is that important? Well, why do we need to apply different markups over the course of a merchandise cycle? Why do you think we need to do that? Question to the group. Is it necessary to have different markups applied? And if so, why?
Okay, so when a product is launched, when it's new, then the markup needs to be high because it's a new launch, right? So it's the newness has to be there. But as and when the time increases, the duration increases, the product price needs to come down because then we have to look at liquidation of the stock.
Correct. Very good, right? Are there any outliers to that affect the price of a certain product during a season?
So, point probably being that besides just the cost of the product, there are so many other factors which have to be taken into account in terms of the logistics costs, in terms of every other cost which we incur at the retail outlet to sell that particular product. So, all of those have to be built into the markup.
Very good, right? You may have things like coupon discounts. You may have sales periods, right? End of season sale. And at the same time, you might have a brand new launch. Both of those coincide with each other, right? You may have markdowns or many other things that can affect the price, but also affect the markup on an item. So what you may initially plan for might not be the same towards the middle of the season, or most importantly, towards the end of the season. Yes, exactly, Karthik, right? Festivities may affect the markup and heavy discounts too. So that's why having different timings of markups are important. Now we're going to consider 4 different types of markups. We're going to consider the markup that you get when you initially receive a product at the store, right? Which is initial markup, or what we also refer to as what the planned markup would be for the product to sell at, right? Ideally, that's the first one. The second one we're going to consider is average markup. We're going to look at average markup and consider it over various different scenarios, especially over like a group of products. Or let's say you make a purchase from a vendor of many different types of products, and then you want to see what the average markup of that group of products is. Well, that's the second one, which is average markup. The third one is cumulative markup, similar to how it's viewed. You take the markup over a certain period of time, and maybe you make some new purchases during the middle of the season. Well, now you have two different markups, right? The initial markup and the markup of products during a season, during the middle of the season. So how do you calculate the difference between the two, right? What's the average of the two? Well, that's cumulative markup. And then finally, maintained markup is the markup that at the end of the day, when the product sells, what was the markup of that particular product that was sold, right? And so this includes everything that we discussed previously, right? If there are any store discounts, any returns that were made, all of those things are taken into account in maintained markup. And that's the ideal thing that we want to look at. That's the practical markup that we have. But it's also important to look at these values of initial, cumulative, and average, so that we know that when we hit our maintained, we're not so far askew that it's completely away from what our initial plan was. So that's why it's important to have all four of these. So let's go and consider first the average markup, because this is easy to understand. And then when we go into initial markup as well, that will also be easy to understand as well. So average markup, because you're in a competitive selling environment, you don't apply the same markup to every single piece of merchandise. That's important, right? You can't have a shoe and an accessory and socks and a shirt and a pant at the same markup percentage, right? They're all clothing, but they're all different at the same time, right? So the same way, even if they're under the same classification, they might not have the same markup. But it's a good idea to have an average markup goal over a set amount of merchandise. And if you're able to achieve targets planned above, then good. And if you're getting below that certain markup goal, then there's something that you need to work on. So how do we calculate average markup? Well, average markup is determined by calculating two things: total cost and total retail. All right. These two things are important. You need to remember that the word total is important. You cannot calculate an average by looking at a single individual stock of goods. Rather, you need to look at it as a group. And generally, when you're buying from a vendor or it's a group of purchases, that's when you include average markup. All right. So let's look at this example on our screen. This maybe explains it a little bit better, right? So a buyer has placed an order for 20 shirts and the cost of each shirt is $14 and the retail value is $24. She also purchases 18 shirts at $12 and retails at $21. So in our earlier discussion, we said that different groups of products in a classification might be priced at a different value, might cost a different value and might retail at a different value. But this is a case of that, right? It's the same type of product. It's a shirt, right? But the acquisition cost, the cost of the product is $12 for one and $14 for the other. And the retail is $21 for one and $24 for the other. And we can't apply the same markup, but what's the average between the two? Well, the way to calculate that is by basically taking our total cost, which is adding both the figures, right? So 280 for the first set of purchases and 216 for the second. And then adding the total retail, which is 480 for the first one and 378 for the second retail value. And that's what we get. And when we do simple math, we can find the calculation between the two, right? Okay. Now, like we said earlier, right, the average markup cannot be determined by averaging the markup on individual items. It has to be based on total cost and total retail. Okay, so keeping that in mind, we're going to look at three types of problems where markup is averaged. Okay, and if you want to follow along, you have an Excel sheet that Shashank mentioned earlier titled the timing of markups. So timing markup calculators, just download that, have that ready, because we're going to go through discussing that while additionally, Shashank has also sent an email to all of you that has that. So if you're not able to download it from the app, check your email, and that should have these files as well. Okay, so just gonna have a sip of water and we'll get started right away. All right, so the three types of problems that we're going to cover. The first one is calculating the markup percentage that's needed on a balance of purchases when the planned markup percent is known. Let's break this down a little bit. So we know what our planned markup percent is, and we've made a set of purchases, let's say at the start of this season. Let's say, let me ask this question. When does the next season start? What date does the next season start for you guys at RBL? Just any date works. Okay, let's just pick a date. Let's say 1st October is the next season. So October, November, December, 3-month cycle. October 1st is the first day of when purchases are made, right? You have your planned markup percent on those purchases. Well, now let's say October 20th, there are more purchases that are made. That's a balance of, or there's more products that are needed for that particular markup goal to be reached, but they're purchased at a higher cost. Well, what's the markup percentage that you need on those new products that are purchased, on that balance of purchases, to be able to reach your markup goal? That's the first one that we're going to cover. The second one is to average the cost when retail percent and markup percent are known. Again, this is on a group of purchases. And the third one is averaging retail when cost and markup percentages are known. On each example, I'm going to show you a particular like mathematical problem, and we'll run through it together and see how we actually come to finding out the answer. So I'm going to share my screen instead of sharing, just sharing this document. So we're going to go to the first one, calculating markup percentage needed on a balance when planned markup percent is known. So would someone like to read the question here? Example 514. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more. Anyone read the question? Or maybe let's just do this. If you can raise your hand and I'll assign someone to read the question out loud for the group. Hello, good morning. Hope you've had your coffee. Anyone there?
Okay, I'll read it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
The buyer for a children's department needs $12,000 worth of merchandise at retail for the month. She has already purchased 200 dresses that cost $18 each and will retail for $30 each. What markup percent must she obtain on the remaining purchases in order to average a 54% markup for the month?
Okay, very good. So this is a bit of a different example from what I mentioned earlier. Earlier I mentioned kind of like what was going with cumulative markup. This is you've made a set of purchases, but it doesn't hit your goal. And so you need to make another set of purchases, but you need to mark that up by a little bit more so that you reach your markup goal. So let's understand this problem. Okay, so what's the first thing? What do we need to find? What's the first thing? What are we looking for? Question to the group. What are we looking for?
The amount that she has spent and the balance, what is left to purchase, other things.
Right. So perfect. There we go. Thank you very much for that. Right. So we need to know how much she needs to purchase and how much to mark that up by to get to the goal of 54%. Okay. So that's what we need to figure out. So let's go step by step. So we've tried to find the answer, and I'm going to visually show this to you as well in the Excel. Okay, so we know what our needs are. We need $12,000 at retail, and we need 54% markup for the month. Those are the two things that we need. All right. So to first find out our needs, we need to know what our total cost should be. Maximum that we can pay for goods to reach our markup goal, right? Plain and simple. So first step is to take retail, which is 100%, minus markup, which is 54%. So we get our cost percentage, right? So we get our 46%. So we know that our cost percentage is going to be 46%. So 46% of 12,000 gives us 5520. So now we know that our purchases need to amount to 5520. Plain and simple. This is what we need. Now let's look at what's already done. So what's already done is two things, right? They've been purchased at a cost, and they're being sold at a certain cost. So let's look at the retail. They are purchased 200 dresses at $30 each. So that is how much at total value? 6,000, right? That doesn't hit our requirement. So we still need more retail purchases. Same thing for our cost. We have 200 purchases purchased at $18. Does it hit our 5520 mark? No, it's only 3,600. So we need to purchase more. Now we get to our next. So now we subtract what our needs are from what we've already purchased. 12,000 from 6,000. And we get our balance of $6,000 that we need to price our next set of purchases. Our next order, we need to, when we make an order, that needs to be valued at $6,000. Okay. Next thing we need to do is find how much can we pay for those goods, which is in this case the balance that's left over from our initial cost. What our cost need was 5520 minus what we've already purchased, 3,600. That gives us our balance of 1920. And now very simply, we take our balance, which is 6,000 divided by 1920, and we get our markup balance of 68%, right? This is all explained in this particular calculation, right? So step one, find the total needs at cost, which is 5520. Find the retail value of purchases that were made, 6,000. Find the cost value of purchases that were made, 3,600. Find the balance at retail and cost, which is 6,000 and 1920 respectively. And finally, find the markup percentage needed on the balance, which is take our retail balance minus cost divided by retail, right? So these two figures, right? So 6,000 minus 1920 divided by 6,000, giving us our retail balance of 68%. Easy to understand? Let me quickly open up the Excel so I can explain this. So this is the Excel sheet. You can use this to calculate the same problem. We just designed this for ease of understanding. So again, our retail needs were 12,000 and our markup goal was 54%, correct? So by doing simple math, see, it already calculates that our cost percentage here is, our cost value is going to be 5520. Now we know our purchases are valued as 6,000. That means the balance is going to be 6,000, right? And we know that our cost is going to be 3,600. So that makes a total of, just ignore this. I'm going to make this text white because this value is a bit difficult to understand. So here we have our 68%. So what does this 68% mean? Quick question to the group. What does the 68% mean?
The markup
For the
percentage.
new lot. Yeah.
Sorry, let's just pick anyone randomly. Yeah, go ahead. What does 68% mean?
Markup percentage.
Okay, but we already had a markup percentage. That's 54%. What is this 68? Why are the two different figures?
This 68 is for the new lot that we're going to buy.
Very good, right? So maybe you can
It's
look at
an
it.
average.
Right, that's average, right? So think of it as this way, right? It's easier to understand it if I put it this way. Right? So the first order was at this value. The next order needs to be at this value, and you need to mark up the goods at 68% to get to your goal, to get to your markup percentage goal. Easy to understand?
Hope you've enjoyed this video. And in the next video, we will discuss the second part, that is averaging costs when retail percent and the markup percent are known. Join us for a free webinar to learn more about buying and merchandising. The link is given in description below. Check it out. See you soon.